I'm really excited about this because we're going to be watching a show which is the last show of 1992. We're talking about STARRCADE 1992 today. And excitingly, this will be Bill Watts' last WCW pay-per-view before they push him out the door.
Bill Watts is very much ever-present in this show, and he's still trying to get that "let's hook 'em up" catchphrase over. Yeah. It's not happening for me, Bill.
All I want to say is let's hook 'em up. All right, fans.
It is funny because I certainly didn't know Bill Watts as a wrestler. He predates really anything that you would ever have seen on television in a way that Dusty Rhodes didn't. You know, you'd see him in the wrestling mags. By the time I was reading the wrestling mags in the late 80s, Bill Watts was a long forgotten character. And it is funny how he just has that wrestler's thing of he cannot let the spotlight go. He has to kind of make appearances. He has to be in front of the crowd. I have a feeling that if anyone had said to him, do you know what would be a great angle, Bill? He would have gone, yes, me coming back into the ring in a main event. And they'd have gone, no, I was going to say we should do something with Van Hammer. And he just sat there and gone, yes, me in the main event. At this time, his booking run in WCW, which has lasted for about a year, is being widely reviewed by everybody as just having been a disaster. He didn't have a lot of friends within the company or within Turner Broadcasting. The wrestlers didn't like him, management didn't like him, and worst of all, every single key demographic number was tanking. House show attendance, when they should have been probably around 2,000 to 3,000 compared to the WWE and scaling it down ever so slightly. Some of their shows were drawing 200 people. Pay-per-view buys were down on the floor. Viewership of the TV shows had gone right down, and sales of merchandise were really, really low. What is even worse than that, and you really see it in this show, is that the audiences just did not seem to care anymore. There's no kids, there's no signs, there's no chants, there's no reaction to a lot of what's going on in the ring. They're sort of turning up and just going, wish I was doing something else. But here we are, might as well sit through this.
Yeah.
He just wasn't putting on the matches that people wanted to see. And the funny thing is, within a year, while WCW would still be precarious financially and it still wouldn't be as big, STARRCADE in 1993 is everything that a STARRCADE should be. And the difference in the year and the removal of Bill Watts does make a huge difference to the quality of the in-ring product. But the Lethal Lottery, this is the last year they do it, I think. I don't think they do it next year. I haven't checked.
I love dancing, especially when I get the lead.
Excuse me, we're back on the air here. Let's get busy and draw some more names.
This is the second year they've done it, and this is the second year that it absolutely tanks. It's appallingly bad. I still read some stuff that hints that last year's was an entire shoot, that there was no sort of planning, because a lot of them are like, this year they decided they wouldn't just leave it up to chance. And I'm sure last year's, the previous one was not a shoot. But this one is a perfect example of going, if you can decide what it is, why did you decide to make it as bad as you could? It would also, changing of the guard, be the last WCW pay-per-view for Jim Ross, who's been there since 1988-89. He would leave for the WWE shortly afterwards and make his debut at WrestleMania 9 in 1993. And he's there with Jesse Ventura. And the two of them, they're clearly aware that Jim is going, and they are like a couple who are divorcing, who are trying to be cordial for the sake of the kids. They're going to try and get through this without a lawyer. And they are saying really the bare minimum to each other. They both commentate on this show, but they don't interact really in any way at all. And there's a couple of moments where Jesse will say, "Don't you think, Jim Ross?" And Ross will just leave a 20-second pause before picking up on whatever he was doing before. It's really passag.
And he can choke, he can punch in the ropes all the way to 4.5.
Lager catches him with a sleeper.
I'll tell you what, I got to give WCW and Bill Watts a lot of credit for signing this match here at the Omni in Atlanta.
Chono, as Larry Zbyszko pointed out, a tremendous mat wrestler.
The champ Ron Simmons came over and interfered with the referee's count, so he's got to start it all over again.
Lock in at 6.
Don't know if you noticed, Jesse had his own Jesse Ventura WCW t-shirt on.
Right, yeah. No, I noticed that he had Janet Jackson's hat on. That was about it, really.
Yeah. It's like the sort of Malcolm X hat as well, which seems I do like Jesse's politics, and he did sort of build himself as being a muscular liberal before he seemed to go a bit conspiracy theory crazy and libertarian. But it's odd to sort of go, I will turn up to my job wearing a Malcolm X hat, because the film by that point probably out on video, I think. He's like, yeah, I'm in Hollywood, I'll wear the Malcolm X hat. But yeah, his WCW t-shirt, I should imagine they sold 0 of those, but I was thinking I would love that. I would love that t-shirt. T-shirt that I'm...
What, just that design, or actually that t-shirt that he wore?
No, that design. I don't want the one on Jesse will be all stretched from his huge muscles. I don't need that. I don't need that. They open it with a huge amount of explanation as well at the top. Where they sort of run down the Lethal Lottery, then the Battle Bowl, then there's all these matches. And even just watching that, I was like, I can't understand who this is supposed to appeal to. I just thought, if you were a kid, you just go, oh, this is too much admin. This is too much real sports admin. And as an adult, you just go, oh, God. I either understand it or I don't. But either way, I just don't want to hear about it.
They seem to be obsessed with this fucking ring. The forging of the Super Bowl style ring. And the graphics are all about the forging of this ring. And because they didn't give Sting one last time he did it, he won it. They've got to bring him out and give the ring to him, because they didn't give it to him last time. It's like, it was only a year ago. You should have done it back then.
They make it clear that they've tried to jazz this up a bit. And it is that awful thing of going, this is a special thing, isn't it? The Battle Bowl ring. So special that we didn't have it last year. And now we're sort of trying to make up ground. So out comes Bill Watts and the fellow Turner exec and Baseball Hall of Famer, Hank Aaron. They bring out Sting. Why you would bring out the biggest star you have in front of the audience for a sort of nothing section? He is going to get a huge response the first time the crowd see him. They are going to now see him in another 3 matches. 3 matches. It's absolute madness. I am very, very against having a main eventer appear again and again in the card. You have that strange thing of, he comes out for his ring. Okay, fair enough. But they've spoiled a pop. He then comes out for a tag match. He's then going to be in the Battle Royal, but he's also having a match with Vader. The whole thing is just diluting what you have. By the time Sting is out for the 3rd time, I'm just like, well, he seems like a member of my family now. I'm not going to cheer him. He's just someone who now lives with me. You know, it's the same. I mean, Vader will do the same amount. Muta will do the same amount. A bizarre thing. The worst thing about it is, if you look at the locker room, they cut back to the locker room. They have, sitting in the locker room, unused, they have Steve Austin and they have Kevin Nash, Tex Slazenger and Shanghai Pierce, Bobby Eaton, not to be able to have a match on STARRCADE because you've decided that Vader's going to do treble duty. Just absolutely ludicrous, just crazy. The other thing they have at WCW is they don't really have any fucking luck. What happens really early on is Ravishing Rick Rude, they find out on the day he's got a herniated disc in his back and he will not be able to wrestle. Now, again, he was supposed to, I think, be doing 2 matches. So you find yourself in this gap. He's supposed to be taking on Ron Simmons for the WCW title. And to have a main eventer, and I know that match isn't in the main event, which again is a problem, but to have a main eventer like Rick Rude on the day you're saying, oh yeah, he's not here. He is still in, when you bought the video, the home VHS, he's in the background between Sting and Ron Simmons. They're still making it really clear that, oh yeah, you know, maybe he will turn up, even though it's now 3.5 years after the thing happens. That never happened in WWF. They never had a thing where they went, a match we advertised couldn't go ahead. And certainly not the main event for the big title wouldn't happen. Just seems absolutely terrible bad luck. Out they come, Missy Hyatt and Larry Zbyszko. In Larry Zbyszko is, he would be a commentator in later years, but I remember it when he was coming out for this, when I was watching this when I was younger, at the time. I just had no idea why such an old man would be a part of wrestling. He's just a really boring old man who was a dull wrestler as far as I was concerned, with no charisma. And out he comes and draws the names for the Lethal Lottery. They say Missy Hyatt will pick them out and Larry Zbyszko will read them, which they're hinting that Missy can't read.
Yes. And what I like about Missy, she's kind of wearing sort of like, it looks like she's wearing like 2 whips around her boobs. It's like a bondage Indiana Jones sort of thing. It's very bizarre.
The more and more I see of Missy back in the day, and again, as a kid, I was like, she's supposed to be a sexy lady, but I actually find her a bit brassy and a bit like Bet Lynch. The whole thing is, to a young man, 15, with no experience of women, very, very frightening. With this Lethal Lottery, look, if you are booking it properly, why not book it to be good is my big question. And why not book it to be good? When you do something like this, the simple way to make people interested in it is you would have a tag team facing off against each other. They do have one, Barry Windham and Brian Pillman, but that is the worst tag team to face off that they can choose. Firstly, they're heels. Secondly, they are going for a title shot later, so we don't really need to see them having the seeds of dissent. And thirdly, they formed about 2 weeks ago, so most people aren't going to have any investment within them as a tag team. So you should have a tag team on either side, but it just shouldn't have been that one. They booked the only wrong one they could do. I think they're obsessed with the idea that they can't give away that it's predetermined, and so they just put together the strangest combination of fucking people that pretty much not one of these matches that they put together has any interest for anyone in any way. They all come into generic library music, not their own theme tunes, as if they're going, but people will say, how come they had their music lined up? Well, I mean, nowadays, it's all on a board. You press a button.
Yeah. How many tracks does a CD have? How big's your roster? 2 CDs. That's all you need.
Yeah, generic library music. It's rubbish. It's really poor. The first match is a Lethal Lottery match. It's Cactus Jack and Johnny B. Bad versus Van Hammer and Dan Spivey. If you look at these four guys and you just said who in 7 years' time will be the WWF champion, you would name everybody before you got to Cactus Jack. It just seems amazing that he would be the man who really broke through.
He looks so mean at this point in his career. He looks really mean, and that's not what I get from that guy.
No, and of course, between that period and now, he will have those 95 years where he's over in Japan taking part in those death matches, which really, cement his legacy. So he was sort of bad dude at this point. But this show is also a bad vibe show. Everybody looks mean. Nobody's playing up to the crowd. Like Johnny B. Bad, he's not waving and sort of going, I'm a bad man. He's coming into the ring and he's going to go, right, I've got to take these people down and I'm going to hurt them. And everyone's so grim. And it's like watching, I don't know, miners fight in a pit in Cornwall in the 20s. Everyone's just, there's no fun and no razzmatazz. It's just bizarre. And it's like Van Hammer. He doesn't even come out with a guitar anymore.
No,
he's just
he doesn't even show off his abs. He's just got a jacket on and a Crocodile Dundee hat. And he's just like, here I am, let's have a fight. Johnny B. Bad gets one confetti cannon. That's all we get. That's it
at the start. And then it's very much like when the confetti cannon is over, the fun and games have stopped. We've now got serious business to do. Van Hammer is the only one actually in the ring who wouldn't end up going to the WWF within the next couple of years. Right. It seems incredible that he, out of all of the four, is the one who didn't go to the land of the sort of muscle men and the poor performers, if you like, the people who lacked some of the in-ring ability. He did have a tryout in, I think, 1993. They gave him 2 dark matches, but they just didn't go with him. How bad you had to be in 1993 to not
to
be
have
given
that body.
a job at the WWF to have, when you look like he did. He's out there in his silver tights as well. That's as flashy as anything is going to be tonight. Just his silver tights had a black gusset in them as well. Just,
if they've been repaired, it was all silver, but then they've been repaired with black. We don't have any silver material. We've got some black stuff.
Yeah, maybe there's not enough give in the silver. I don't know, but I did look at it. It just looks like you've got problems with your waterworks. Because it's either perished, the silver, or you've got to have a pad that can be taken out swiftly. And
a little bag,
It stopped me going, oh yeah, I can see, why isn't he the next Hulk Hogan? I was like, he's got sort of pad, he's got Depends on. He needs them,
I like the fact that during the entirety of this match, someone is just doing massive blood-curdling screams for no reason. I can't tell if it's a man or a woman, but they're just going, ah!
Hammer just nails Cactus. He will be intimidated, it doesn't seem like, Jess.
Right in the ribs with the point of the boot right there. Looked like a field goal from 50 yards out. Spivey puts the big squeeze on him. Johnny B. Bad can't breathe too good. Throws him in the corner, and there's the tag to Van Hammer, who didn't.
Dan Spivey is out there. He has a classic mullet that he's wearing here. It's so many different bits that make it so awful.
Yeah.
So he's like balding at the front of his hair. He's really receding at the temples. He's got a really flat crew cut up the top, and then this long sort of. You see a lot of like quite sort of rough baby kids with that hairstyle, where it's sort of been shaved on the top and it's all down the back,
and they're covered in jam and blood and grease, and they're just kind
dirty
of
vest.
a dirty vest,
One of those,
nappy.
Big nappy
in an alleyway,
really full. They've got a little flick knife and a dummy. It's by 1992 in this country, the mullet was dangerously dated. You really didn't see mullets in this country, and they only seem to survive in sort of wrestling and the serial killer community in America. I mean, obviously some crossover there. But the more I looked at him, he looks like a really big Stone Cold Steve Austin. He's got a sort of look of, like if Stone Cold had a cousin who'd been dropped on his head and then he'd had a sort of like growth accelerant because of the damage to his brain. And I'm fascinated with that thing about damaging your head and then going, now I am Superman. I have
I'd
big
take
powers.
that deal.
But will I use them wisely? I cannot. Because the cost of my head injury has been some loss of faculty. I'm very strong now, like a bull. Spivey had been signed by Bill Watts. Bill Watts had an absolute stonk on for anyone who had wrestled in Japan. And having been part of the Skyscrapers with Sid Vicious in the late 80s, Spivey had left WCW and gone to All Japan, where he'd done a lot of teaming with Stan Hansen. And so Bill Watts had seen him and gone, this is the sort of tough guy I want. One of the rules that Bill Watts had brought in by this time was a hangover from his Mid-South days in the 80s, where he'd said, if any of my wrestlers are started on when they're out in a bar or a nightclub or a restaurant, restaurant, he said, if you lose a fight, you'll be fired. I'm not having people who aren't wrestlers be able to walk around their town saying, I've beaten him up. So they had a rule that if you were beaten up and you lost the fight, then you would be fired, no questions asked.
That has got to be against employment law. That just has to be.
It must have been a contractual thing. It must have been in contract. Yeah. But it was a great little thing I saw. It's about Vern Gagne, who used to run the AWA. He once famously sent out a load of contracts to wrestlers. And in the covering letter, he said, on no accounts must you show this contract to a lawyer. So as a code of silver signing. Really magic. Nice. He didn't have a good run in WCW. They always found it difficult to know what to do with him. And I think it was slightly because he had a bit of a charisma bypass. That Wayland Mercy thing helped him out because it was something that he knew what the parameters were. But without it, he was just a big guy with a bad haircut who just underperformed slightly in the ring. Part of the reason I think Watts would have liked him, seeing him in All Japan, it's a very physical place. And he knew he was one of those guys who, again, if someone picked him in a restaurant, Spivey was not going to lose that fight. He wanted hard men. The problem with those tough guys, they're not always great in the ring. And Spivey was one of those. I did have a look at what he's up to. He had a DUI a couple of years ago, Spivey, and he set up his own sort of sober companionship group where I think, he provides buddies for people who are struggling with alcohol misuse. So, good on him for that. I saw he was also the ambassador for the breakfast restaurant chain, The Breakfast Station in Florida. Strange corporate decision to sort of go, let's get Dangerous Dan Spivey and he could be our breakfast ambassador. Don't know what that's about. But maybe it's just a really rough restaurant and maybe Spivey hasn't lost a fight there and that's how you become their ambassador. Johnny B. Bad here, you can get the feeling as well that because Bill Watts doesn't rate Johnny B. Bad, Mark Merrow, even though, he's a Golden Gloves boxing champ and things like that, you can see Merrow has a certain amount of frustration here that he was really, really over with his Johnny B. Bad gimmick. And now he's at a point where he's just disappeared into the mix. And he wrestles really hard in this. I think his third move, he does a Frankensteiner on Van Hammer, which is one of the nastiest landings you'll ever see anyone take on a Van, let alone Van Hammer, who is 6'5". But Van Hammer is spiked into the floor by his head. Yeah. And Johnny B. Bad, you get the impression that he's so fucked off with the whole thing. When it happens, there's no sense in him going, shit, I hope he's okay. He's just like, well, I'm going to tag out another day in the office. Lack of care. But he does look angry in this. And there's a sense here of, you can actually feel a bit the frustration, I think, of what they're all feeling backstage. It's one of the very few shows where you can see everyone just seems like they're in a bad mood and they're hostile and they're prickly and they're unhappy. In the meantime, Peter, if you see Bill Watts in a restaurant, remember, if he can't beat you, never specified age, then you immediately get to take over A, whatever his job is, and B, his lovely unleft dinner. Yum, 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 yum.
Right now, I'd like to introduce the man that will be my guest co-host this week on our first edition of WCW Saturday Night. Please welcome Jesse the Body Ventura.